What's poppin', people? It's Dante going for my morning walk here along the Schuylkill River, baby, the hidden creek. Yeah, I actually grew up just a stone throw away from here, about 5 miles up the river, where I would explore in the Wissahickon forest as a kid, photographing with the Ricoh GR3X today, the 40mm, using the high contrast black and white small JPEG file. Yeah, I actually believe that this is the easiest way to make a photograph in the current year of 2024. Therefore, I believe it to be the most innovative solution to improving your street photography with the highest success rate possible. And the reason why I believe this is because, first and foremost, as artists, as photographers, we strive to create beautiful images, right? We want to make something beautiful. And I think at least the bare minimum should be an aesthetically beautiful photograph, right? And so when you crank the contrast settings to the maximum and you embrace the grain, the grit, the raw sort of essence of light and shadow itself, you truly reveal, I believe, the beauty and essence of the streets itself. And I genuinely am just so excited and happy photographing each day. Even if I walk this same mundane sort of lane, there's a nuance and change through the way that light casts and gives shape and form to this tunnel and the surfaces around me. And you know, everything becomes extraordinary when you look through the lens of a camera. You know, the ordinary becomes surreal, and the mundane is something that we revel in and champion and thrive in as street photographers, where perhaps the ultimate goal of an artist is to use the mundane world as our canvas and elevate it to a transcendental height. And I find that perhaps this solution, utilizing the newest compact digital camera with these particular settings baked into it, is the fastest way to make an instant sketch of light, an instant sketch of life. And yeah, maybe this is the goal of a street photographer. So I enjoyed teetering along this intersection between order and chaos, as well, as you can see, doing some parkour here. Actually, yesterday I saw some guys doing parkour along the Penn's Landing location. There was this amazing event, and these people were, it was a Red Bull event, and these people were trying to get to the top of this pole, you know, over the Delaware River, running up the pole to grab a flag. And that same day yesterday, I saw these, you know, like high school students doing insane parkour moves along the river, like basically along the river like this, doing these like backflips and stunts and acrobatics. And to me, it's just so inspiring to see the way that the human body can move. And yeah, maybe when it comes to motivation, meaning movement, yeah, as street photographers, yeah, the goal should be to simply move using our two legs. I think also about the agility of movement. And so, yeah, maybe there's something about the way in which we move that also determines the result of the photographs we make. You know, where you want to be agile, you want to be fast, you want to be on your toes. And yeah, using the Vibram 5-finger ELX knit version shoes, there's something about wearing barefoot shoes where I feel more connected to the ground, obviously, where you can feel the sensations. Yeah, maybe shoes are like condoms where you can't feel the sensation. And so yeah, maybe go barefoot. Even if the durability isn't the best, I still think they're the best. Yeah, just embrace the holes. And so yeah, firstly, thinking about health now, you know, where the sun, the light itself, the light is the truth, man. The light is the answer. And I think that as street photographers as well, yeah, maybe it's wise for us to simply follow the light, right? You know, to chase the light. And, you know, through waking up, catching the sunrise, allowing it to peer through my eyes, through my oculus, I'm setting my natural biological clock, my circadian rhythm. And hey, check out the shadow casted on the wall. Hello. Yeah, I think that to become in tune with nature is critical, where, you know, I'm rising with the sun, I'm sleeping with the sunset, and, you know, through catching the sunrise, through absorbing more of the sun's raw power, energy, yeah, this feeling of abundance flows through me, where I really do not pay attention to the time of the day, where, you know, I feel as though when I'm moving, when I'm out in the sun, when I'm out in the light, yeah, I merely exist outside the passage of time, you know, where I'm not a slave to time. I don't need to set an alarm. I don't need to check the clock. You know, there's nowhere I need to be. I'm not checking any text messages or emails and things that are telling me to be here, be there. It's like, yeah, just sort of letting life flow towards me. And, you know, when I consider the light and shadow, I'm reminded of the book I read this past year from Plato's Republic. Oh yeah, check out the Philadelphia Free Library. It's really great. Just get a library card and you can browse through some of their photo books. Yeah, one particular photo book they have there is from Ray Metzger, who photographed here in Philadelphia and utilized light and shadow, and is certainly one of my biggest inspirations in terms of photographers these days. And yeah, you don't even need a library card. You could just go in there and flip through the book, I think. Yeah, just find the photography book section and check it out. Yeah, but they have a section on philosophy, and I checked out Plato's Republic, and after reading and contemplating this notion of Plato's allegory of the cave, where the slaves or prisoners are chained to the walls of a cave, one man decides to be free, or to free himself to go into the light, to leave the cave. Essentially, the slaves in the cave are only viewing shadows casted on the wall. They're only able to perceive these forms through the shadows that the light is casting on the walls of the cave, and they deem this to be the truth. However, when the man is freed and leaves the cave, he sees the truth for what it is. He sees the way that light, you know, gives form and shape to surfaces, and has this call to return to the cave and free the slaves. However, when the slaves or the prisoners, you know, unshackle themselves and leave the cave, they find it hard to believe. You know, the truth is sort of hard to sort of get used to, you know, where the light, you know, it's peering in your eyes, and, you know, it's hard to adjust to the light. But maybe there's that struggle of following the light and seeking truth, seeking wisdom that we should all embark on. Sort of thinking of this allegory metaphorically, where you know, perhaps light is the truth. And so here we are at this sculpture by Walker Hancock titled Air. Yeah, I feel as though sculpture and architecture, to me, they're honestly, I believe to be the highest form of art. You know, there's something about a sculpture that elevates this world, you know, to a new and transcendental height, right? There's something about even just the positioning of a sculpture where you're forced to look up at it, right? You're forced to look up at the sculpture. You know, there's this beauty of the sculpture, this elegance of the forms, you know, the physique itself. You know, what a sculpture does for me is it permits the viewer, permits me to strive to become like the sculpture. And I think that this is something that beautiful art has the capability of achieving. And yeah, this is very difficult, right? To make a sculpture like that, it is very difficult. Where considering architecture, where many sculptures are positioned, such as here in Philadelphia, where we have the Wanamaker building, which is to me one of the most beautiful buildings in the city, with so many wonderful columns and beautiful detail inside. And in the center of this building, we have an eagle sculpture, you know, built of bronze, you know, every feather wrought by hand. It's extremely grand, and it's this representation of America, right? The eagle. And the symbol, you know, is just filled with metaphors and interesting things to contemplate. However, just the sheer scale of it alone, and the way that it's positioned in the center of this building, you know, it really is I think one of the most beautiful experiences you can have in terms of you know, appreciating art in the city of Philadelphia. is visiting the Wanamaker Organ at 5:30 p.m. every single day except for Sunday, which is today. They play, you know, a 30 to 45 minute show where you get to listen to the world's largest playing pipe organ. You're standing in this incredible building surrounded by beautiful sculpture, and yeah, to me it's a really transcendental experience. It's something like, to me that's like the highest form of art, and it's free. It's like you don't have to pay to go to these modern art galleries, museums, whatever. I don't know. I think a lot of modern art, like for instance in New York City when I visited last year, I tried to go to some like random like galleries to see like contemporary photography, and what astonishes me about contemporary photography and just modern art generally is it's aesthetically not beautiful. You know, where the images themselves, they're not beautiful, and I think that's a problem, because I think that the art that we create should at least be beautiful to look at. However, what I noticed was there's, you know, these images. I think actually the image I was looking at, I think it was from a Magnum photographer, and it was like a sculpture being removed, and it was all graffitied, and it was some like anarchist thing. I have no idea. And you have to like read an essay, and like the photograph is not interesting, but the essay is supposed to be the compelling piece, and you sit there and you're reading this long essay, and it's like, can I just look at the thing and like feel something? You know, to me that's the goal of art, is to look at it and to feel something within. And you know, you don't get that from modern art. I think that that's lacking generally, right? And so there were these other like portraits, and they're just like these blasé portraits of someone just banal, you know, looking into the camera, whatever. And it's like, then you read the description, and it's like about identity and them struggling with their identity and how they fit into society and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't know what is going on with modern art and society in general, perhaps, but yeah, maybe I don't know, maybe it's like wokeness or something. I don't know if that's the word, but it doesn't resonate with me. And yeah, I figure it's just something worth mentioning. It's like, do you notice that too? I mean, I certainly do. And that's why I genuinely have no interest. I've never had any interest in, you know, these like gallery shows and, you know, all this contemporary art stuff. It's like, it's just never been something I am interested in. You know, also considering art, right? So when I was in Rome, I remember visiting these beautiful basilicas and churches, and looking at some of the works of Caravaggio. And so while Caravaggio, his paintings and his images are beautiful, you know, these images of these biblical scenes and these stories that are just incredible, right? However, the church that the painting sits in, to me, is more beautiful, or to me is a higher form of art. Does that matter? No, but I think it's worth mentioning. You know, where architecture, the reason why I'm so impressed by it is because of its, you know, limitations that it's working within. And the limitations that it's working within is physics itself, gravity, where man and physical labor strives upwards. And yeah, maybe great art is going to be very difficult to create, and that's, yeah, that's inevitable. What else? Yeah, I think yeah, the reason why I'm so fascinated by Caravaggio is, I think, you know, around 2 years ago, you know, something sparked within me where I began my spiritual journey, you could say. And I think when I viewed these paintings, it sort of helped solidify or realize these stories visually. You know, I'm a very visual person, and so when you see the paintings of Jesus being, you know, crucified, or you see these biblical narratives being on display, you know, when I see the image of David and Goliath, and reconsider my past experiences in Israel. I actually visited the Valley of Elah where David and Goliath fought. I remember exploring in these caves, I believe from the Bronze Age, from thousands and thousands of years ago, where I was discovering these little pieces of clay pots and things. And I remember looking out towards the valley, and even during my recent trip to Rome, I viewed the inscription of the cross and pieces of the cross, the nails, some of the thorns in one of the churches in Rome. I remember visiting the tomb in Old City Jerusalem. I remember seeing a lot of these places in Jericho, such as the sycamore tree. And there's something about belief that is interesting to think about, like the difference between belief and a knowing. I feel as though perhaps to go beyond this notion of belief to a knowing is maybe it's maybe where we want to be. And that knowing is like, what is God, right? And when I consider what God is, I consider this walk, right? Me surrounded by nature, walking through this path. And, I'm currently speaking and following my subconscious mind and sort of just letting my thoughts flow. However, on a regular day, if you're just walking and you're alone and you're in nature, you're probably blank for the most part. However, there are times where your conscience sort of speaks to you in your head, and you think of a choice that you want to make. Should I go left? Should I go right? And there's this decision, and these choices essentially, I believe, determine your outcome, who you are. And maybe that is God, right? Maybe there is this conscience that we all possess, and we all know what right or wrong is. And I believe that conscience is what is guiding us there, and that is God. And so maybe our intuition, I like to think we have a godlike intuition. That is something worth contemplating on and worth following. And it seems that our conscience maybe God. It's certainly what separates us from the rest of the animals in the animal kingdom. And when I think of conscience, I remember while in Rome, they have so many of these little toy sculptures for tourists of Pinocchio. I even remember being a little boy and celebrating Pasqua or Easter. On Easter Sunday, I would go to the south and outside of Napoli to my family and cousins. And when I was maybe 10 years old, I remember going to the little church, and I remember this girl fainted on me. And it was just such a small church, and I remember I got to hand out the holy water. And so after church, you sort of just like, you get to play, you get to eat, and they give out these big chocolate eggs, and you smash the eggs, and within these eggs there's a toy, there's a puppet, and there's a Pinocchio. And that story is kind of interesting because the story of Pinocchio going from this wooden toy to a real boy requires him to follow his conscience, or in the story depicted as Jiminy Cricket, right, the little cricket guy, sort of in the back of his hat or in the back of his head telling him what to do and what not to do. And there's a very stark and gloomy, disturbing scene in this in this film where Pinocchio is in Pleasure Island, and at Pleasure Island everyone's indulging, drinking, gambling, playing pool, destroying churches. And there's a scene specifically where he's sitting back and he's smoking a cigar, and as he continues to smoke, he flicks his conscience away, and by disobeying his conscience and indulging in this hedonistic pleasure, he then transforms to a donkey with his friend, and his friend, through the full transformation, which is like extremely scary to watch in like the original, I think it's from like the 1940s. Yeah, he's sent to the mines, to the salt mines, to be a slave. And perhaps through disobeying our conscience, through the pursuit of pleasure, we become a slave to these things, you know, these hedonistic whims, you know, these base and primal urges that we all possess to seek pleasure. And yeah, I don't know, it had me thinking. I remember I met this man on the streets of Rome, and he was interesting, right? I remember I was walking around I was walking around the Spanish Steps with my shirt off. And Luca, he was like, yo bro, like you gotta put a shirt on, like the polizia, like they're gonna get you, like you can't wear no shirt here. I didn't realize, because you know, in the United States it's not a big deal. Like I don't really wear a shirt a lot when it's the summer. I just like to walk around and enjoy the sun these days. And you know, I put my shirt back on and we walked around, and I remember you know, seeing like the Pinocchios everywhere and like talking about it, and I was like, I don't know, it was just like, is this like an Italian thing, right? Like this like Pinocchio thing. And he was telling me like Pinocchio, like I didn't know what he was trying to describe, but he was trying to say that the pin, like the pineal gland, like something within your brain, right? Like they say it's like your third eye or whatever. I guess it's responsible for our dreams, maybe. And occhio meaning eye, so the third eye, Pinocchio. And you know, pin, like pine cone. Then I see all these like pine cone sculptures everywhere in Rome, you know, like there's this fountain, you get the water from the pine cone sculpture, and I'm like, this is cool. You know, apparently like the Vatican, there's like this gigantic pine cone sculpture, like there's just like little like pine cones everywhere, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And so why does this matter? I don't know. I just remember learning about it, and I thought that was kind of cool. And so yeah, let me think more. Check it out. The Philadelphia Museum of Art. This is one of the most beautiful art museums that I've ever been in, honestly. I think it's an incredible building, right? Check out the architecture, man. It's just, the beautiful colors on the top of the columns is just astonishing, honestly. I love studying these sculptures and the way that the light casts upon it. I think that's a really beautiful thing to do with the camera, you know, photographing the sculptures. You know, finding beauty in light itself. You know, this to me is the power of photography. You know, considering photography as writing with light, drawing with light, painting with light, yeah, we can find infinite ways to draw upon our canvas that is the world. You know, look at this sculpture. How can I photograph it? You know, I'm looking at the way that these forms are made here. Look at the form. The way that the light is casted upon his clothing. And there's infinite ways to photograph. You know, photography really is this infinite thing. You know, even photographing the shadows of these stairs. You know, and when I photograph, I like to move my physical body. You know, I think that moving and photographing, you know, embracing this sort of spontaneous nature of making the photograph itself, the sort of technique of moving your body, photographing, and sort of photographing loosely, perhaps is a great way to go about making a picture, you know, where I embrace the sort of amateur snapshot and find new ways to play this game by doing so, where I'm never complacent, I'm never stagnant, and I'm never bored when I have a camera in hand. And I think that comes through movement and embracing chance, embracing spontaneity, and merely remaining curious about what the photograph will manifest to be. You know, when I'm looking at life, I'm merely curious about what it will look like when I'm photographing it. And I think this is a great approach, right? To move your body through the scene, through whatever it is that you are photographing, and to essentially stop thinking and just shoot, right? I think that's a great mindset, to just think less, shoot more, you know, sort of just ask questions later. I think embracing this sort of flow state of production. Oh wow, look at this, is ultimately the goal. You know, sort of like this river flowing, changing. Yeah, we too should embrace movement, right? We too should enter this stream of becoming, where instead of considering whether or not the photograph you make is good or bad, or if you're doing something right or wrong, yeah, perhaps we should embrace failure openly and to move on to the next one. Sort of like, you know, just think this way, right? It's like your next photograph is your best photograph, and when you think that way, yeah, you will enter this flow state and just continuously press the shutter, you know, sort of just snapshot your way through life, right? Your next photograph is your best photograph, right? There's no such thing as good or bad photographs. You want to enter this stream of becoming, and yeah, maybe just like that notion of your next photograph is your best photograph, yeah, perhaps the next day when you wake up in the morning, you're given this blank slate, you know, this new day to embrace change. And you know, maybe the best way to go about life actually is to essentially treat each and every day like a lifetime, like a miniature lifetime. I find this to be a good idea, right? Where when I go to rest my head before going to sleep and close my eyes, I essentially assume that I won't wake up the next day. I sort of treat it like a mini death. And so when I wake up in the morning, it's like a mini birth. And what this does and sets in perspective for me is, you know, the simple pleasures in life become so meaningful, right? Like the sun kissing my skin right now, you know, the sweat dripping from my back through this physical exercise of me wearing this weighted vest from Rogue, right? These 40-pound plates. And, you know, listening to the sounds of the birds in the morning, and then seeing this beautiful vista, this amazing scene, this incredible landscape that's in front of me, and looking beyond the horizon, and, you know, drinking clean water, and, you know, having the grass touch my feet, and, you know, having the ability to move my legs, right? The ability to move, right? This to me is the ultimate privilege and luxury in life. And when I photograph this scene every single day, I remind myself that I cannot make the same photograph twice, you know, for the way that the light is going to hit this surface every day, depending on the time of the day. There's always nuance and gradual change. And yeah, this is just such a beautiful thought, right? You cannot make the same photograph twice, right? There's something special about photography and the way that it allows you to perceive life around you, where yeah, the mundane can become a dream and not what it seems, you know, through the lens of a camera, truly. You know, just watching the way that this small pebble casts its shadow, you know, and I uplift it in a macro photograph, you know, maybe it becomes bigger than life itself through the photograph that I make, you know, where the small details, you know, these rock formations, they almost become larger to life in the photograph that you make, similar to that of a landscape photograph. And so practically when I'm on the street, you know, I'm looking at the multifaceted complexities, you know, I'm looking at the details, you know, the macro, the big picture, the landscape, you know, the people, the faces, you know, everything, you know, becomes it's just like another world. And it's like you possess the ability as a photographer to create a new world in a fraction of a second. And this is very powerful. Yeah, and I think that is where the superpower of photography lies. Yeah, it's in the ability for the photographer to find meaning in this mundane world and to give meaning to it, you know. Yeah. And so I just came from over there. I was photographing a scene. I saw it unfold, so I wanted to come back to my river. I was like getting distracted. I go back. I like to go for this walk, hit the cliff, go to the front of the museum. They've got these stairs that are good to climb. Maybe I'll do some stair climbing with the vest on. Thinking of movement. Yeah, maybe movement is critical as photographers, right? Just moving our physical bodies. So maybe working out our legs, focusing on the strength of our legs is important. And so yeah, maybe the museum steps, right? The rocky steps. Yeah, this is our best place to train, right? Just walking up and down the stairs. Yeah, maybe this is a good idea. Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll do it. I should start doing that. Yeah, it'll be a good idea. You know, just thinking of health and fitness generally for the past 2 years, I've been adopting a 100% carnivore diet, which when I tell people, they think it's crazy. But honestly, the more that I've embarked on this journey, the more it just makes total sense to me. Because, right, like consider the body, right, as the battery and the sun as the charger, right? And the sun is providing us with that sense of power, energy, charge. You know, I find, you know, the sunlight fuels me throughout the day. The more time I spend in the sun, the more energy that I have. And when I contemplate energy, I think of fat as stored energy within the body. And so through consuming more fatty red meat, I'm essentially allowing more energy to be stored in my body, giving me this satiated feeling throughout the day. And I am no longer dependent on other food groups. I am no longer dependent on having 3 square meals a day. I do not eat breakfast or lunch and can sustain my body very easily with power and vigor throughout the day through consuming a very strict and 100% carnivorous diet. And the goal, I think, of embracing this carnivore diet essentially is to eliminate all of the decisions. And when you go to a grocery store, you know, most of the foods in the store are processed junk and not good for us. And so by eliminating those things and embracing real whole foods like animal-based protein, yeah, maybe that is where we can find ourselves becoming more in tune with nature, you know, where embracing sunlight, eating meat, you know, these things do have a lasting effect on our health and our well-being, where the cholesterol within the meat that I consume is synthesizing within my cells, you know, synthesizing the vitamin D, you know, providing me with this tan and sun-kissed skin, increasing and synthesizing my testosterone, giving me this sense of power, right? We must consider our physiology as men, right? We have testes, we have testosterone. Yeah, so maybe maximizing it through the consumption of red meat is a good idea for us, you know, for the more cholesterol, the more meat that I consume as a man, you know, the easier it is for me to curb my emotional state, right? Where we all have emotions. We find ourselves angry, we find ourselves sad, you know, maybe someone says something rude to you, and it can hurt, right? But that hurt, that feeling can be curbed very much easily so through having higher testosterone levels. So I think that there is a correlation to this where, yeah, maybe all of the external, you know, things that come at you, yeah, they don't have the same effect on you when considering testosterone and the effects it has on your body, your hormones. Yeah, I think it's worth considering, right? I remember playing League of Legends when I was a boy, and I always played as the tankiest character that I could choose, such as Blitzcrank, who was this super robot, tanky character. I could armor him up, I would maximize his defense and take all of the shots, right? I would run through the middle of the lane, allow the minions to hit me, allow the turrets to shoot all their shots at me, taking and absorbing all of the hit points, enabling my shield, increasing my defense, and then allowing my teammates to take out the enemy. And yeah, maybe that's a good approach to life, is to sort of harden ourselves, to fortify ourselves, our bodies. And yeah, I believe we can do this through physical means, like increasing our physical strength, but also mentally or emotionally, where we can curb our anger, we can curb how we feel and how other people's perceptions of us affect us, right? Where, you know, we must go beyond these limiting preconceptions, you know, or even just go beyond our perception of ourselves, right? This is another reason why I like the GoPro, because the GoPro Mini, there's no screen, there's no LCD. I cannot perceive myself currently, which, you know, I think is a good thing. You know, maybe the perception of ourselves is ultimately what limits ourselves. Yeah, maybe we got to go beyond that. Check it out. Yeah, climb some stairs. It's a beautiful sculpture of Prometheus and the eagle, Prometheus and the vulture. Pretty beautiful work. I actually like that sculpture a lot. It's more abstract, but still, nonetheless, it's really nice. I actually like abstract art as much as I appreciate architecture and the structure and order and form of it. Yeah, I think maybe the intersection between order and chaos is, yeah, maybe that's where we want to be generally. And, you know, considering art, considering photography, yeah, maybe the external, the world around us is chaotic, disorderly, but through putting a frame around life, we put order to it. Check it out. I love this sculpture, man. It's really nice. Look at someone put a rock here. It's a beautiful rock. God. What does that say? There's a little bird. Yeah, Prometheus wrestling with the eagle, the vulture. Yeah, there's something about these myths and these stories that really do form and shape our reality. You know, I consider these ancient Greek myths as much as I consider the biblical ones. And yeah, maybe there's wisdom to draw through all this kind of stuff. You know, what I think is lacking in society generally is religion. You know, I've been thinking about this because, you know, religion, community, family, you know, God, like, I think that this sets into order a hierarchy for functioning society. And I'm always reminded of my time spent as a Peace Corps volunteer in Zambia, Africa, where at the center of the village, there is a church. And everyone comes to this church. You know, everyone is a thriving community member, you know, participating every Saturday or Sunday at the church, you know, learning together, growing together as this family, as this tribe. And at the center of the church, there's the altar. You know, at the altar, this sacrifice is made where, you know, we remind ourselves of the story of Jesus, you know, to me, being the archetype to strive towards. And yeah, maybe the archetype of Jesus, or or thinking of Jesus as the philosopher or teacher, is wise, where, you know, it does not matter whether you are Christian or believe him to be the Messiah. However, the teachings that he laid out for us perhaps provide us with the meaning of life. And so when I consider this village, this tribe, coming to this church, contemplating the stories of Jesus, you know, it makes me think, right? Everybody in this village, everybody in this community is striving to go beyond themselves to become like Jesus himself, by listening and following his teachings. And I think that this sets a community or society up for success generally, and allows others to thrive. And so, you know, within the village, within the tribe, everyone has a role to play within the family. You know, the mother comes home with babies on her back and firewood on her head. The men are building churches and homes. The boys are building bricks with sand and mud. You know, the girls are sweeping the floors. The girls are preparing food for the day, right? Everybody has a role to play in the village, in the tribe. And yeah, I think that this is where humans will ultimately thrive, where each member of the community has this found purpose and a role to play. And so perhaps this is lacking in the West generally. Maybe this is lacking in modern society. Perhaps all of the technological advancements, the infinite yummy food options, all the TV shows, the media, the news, celebrity gossip, whatever it may be, I think it distracts us from meaning and purpose. And my thought about God is maybe we replaced it with bureaucracy, right? You know, bureau meaning office, think cretio or kretos meaning power, right? Power to the office, you know, power to the government, power to the FDA, the DMV, you know, all of these systems that we put in place that set this structure or hierarchy within modernity. Yeah, I think maybe we worship bureaucracy now in replacement of God himself. And I think what that does is, instead of the individual striving to become like Jesus or to become more godlike, the individual then strives towards power, material wealth, or the pursuit of pleasure. You know, one of the things I noticed as well in the village was every family had around 10 children. You know, every family had big families, you know, and it was astonishing because in these villages, they lack technological advancements. You know, they draw water from a well. You know, where here in the United States, right, we can turn on a tap and have clean drinking water. However, despite our abundance, maybe we squander our human potential and growth of our population. You know, it's quite evident to me that our population is on decline. And when you recognize that and you see that, it's kind of hard to unsee. And the reason why I see it so clearly is because of the experiences I've had traveling and seeing these other places in comparison to modern cities like Philadelphia. And I think because everybody in these villages are willingly making sacrifices, this is why you see the population booming in places like rural villages in Africa. You know, because to be honest, maybe making a family, raising a child, you know, this is the ultimate sacrifice, where you sacrifice all of your personal pursuits, pleasures, whims to then bear a child or to raise a family. And yeah, maybe that is the ultimate sacrifice. But I think that is something that we are lacking. We no longer maybe strive to make this sacrifice. Actually, I remember when I visited the village for the first time and I arrived and I got to meet my host family. My host father, Babwalia, presented me with a goat hanging from a tree to slaughter, and he gave me a knife and I slaughtered the goat, and then we feasted all week. And you know, that's the ultimate sacrifice, right? Thinking of my time in Jericho during the day of sacrifice, Eid al-Adha, where hundreds of sheep were slaughtered in the village, and you know, all I heard were the cries of sheep for a week, and the blood and the stench filled the streets. You know, I felt like I was in this biblical scene, and everybody makes this sacrifice through fasting throughout the day and feasts on the meat in the evening. And yeah, it reminds me that sacrifice is perhaps what keeps a community thriving. My theory about modernity and the city is that nothing is really happening. this is my favorite theory. Nothing's happening. Cars are moving to and fro. We fill ourselves and shuffle ourselves into offices, and I think almost we're devolving. Like, the more I contemplate evolution as the goal, I think the more we are actually devolving, where it's very easy to train a monkey. Didn't we implant the monkey with the Neuralink and they started to play video games and operate computers? Like, I think that when I consider somebody operating a computer, doing Zoom calls, sending emails, checking boxes, sort of filling these bureaucratic roles in these systems, where essentially 75% of our population in the cities are working in. Yeah, it just reminds me, or it makes me think, honestly, that nothing's really happening. It's just like squandered human potential, sort of the return to the cave, right? The return to the shadow on the wall. And that's, yeah, maybe not a good place to be. It's almost as if we're still stuck in the desert of Egypt, wandering, and we're now worshiping this like golden calf, which is, you know, these like stupid cars that we strive to purchase and these stupid things that we buy and consume. It's like, that's our new idol. It's this material thing. And I think that strays the individual away from what is truly meaningful, being God, family, and the land. And so yeah, maybe hopefully we can free ourselves from slavery, and maybe through making the robots, making the computers our slaves. Yeah, maybe that is the only solution for us to become free. And I think if you're moving your physical body and you're outside and you're getting sunlight, yeah, maybe we should just consider ourselves free. But yeah, maybe freedom is hard to achieve in this modern world. When I think of freedom, evolution, transformation, I'm reminded of this concept from Friedrich Nietzsche in the book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the Metamorphosis, where the camel represents man carrying societal norms and expectations on his back, sort of participating willingly, going along with the program, transforming to the lion, who essentially says no to all of these societal norms and expectations, creating his own value, his own moral, and then ultimately returning to the child as the final form of the transformation, sort of embracing that spirit of play, creativity, saying yes to life, affirming life. And what this means is, when you consider a child, there's infinite potential for growth, learning, and newfound understandings, where a child is always growing and always evolving, and there is no final form. And maybe this is where we must return to before we were hardened from society's norms. And even within the Bible itself, I think it was something that Jesus taught. Maybe it was during the Sermon on the Mount. He mentioned that you must return to being a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think that there is a lot of wisdom to draw from this, because, you know, a child represents this innocence, this purity, and just pure beauty that yeah, maybe we should strive to evoke as photographers, as artists, and just as people in general, where, you know, I understand, you know, that life can be serious at times, but maybe it's best and most wise for us to not take it so seriously and to sort of just go through life with this spirit of play. Yeah, I think maybe that's where we can find the ultimate solution to living our everyday lives, giving meaning to it. Sort of, yeah, just never letting go of your inner child. Yeah, maybe that is the yeah, that is the final form of the evolution, the metamorphosis. You become the child again, you know, and everything is new again. And every day when you wake up, you're just curious again. You know, for that to me is my ultimate goal in life. It's curiosity. It's to increase my curiosity by 1% each day, right? To become stronger each day, you know, physically. For that physical strength is what carries my body, my vehicle, you know, not these cars. You know, it's my body. You know, my body is the vehicle, and I'm driven by courage, and my legs are the source of the motivation, sort of just getting me there. And my curiosity follows my courage, right? For you must possess the courage, like the lion, to go out there onto the front lines of life, but also have that mind of a child to remain curious and open to the unexpected and the spontaneous nature of life itself, and, you know, find beauty and meaning in it, right? There really is something about curiosity that ultimately is what fuels me in my everyday life. And I think we lack curiosity generally because of all of this external stimuli that distracts us. And yeah, that's a problem. And so what is the number one problem with this current generation? I believe generation meaning to produce, to beget children. Yeah, perhaps this is the ultimate problem right now. It's the lack of forming families, the lack of producing children. And so, yeah, maybe we must just become children ourselves, make art, and treat those like our kids. No, but, you know, I think I'm, you know, 1996. I was born in 1996. I'm considered Generation Z, right? I think that's safe to say. And, you know, I remember growing up, I had the Game Boy Advance, and we had to put the light on it just to see the screen. I remember growing up when Xbox Live first came out, you know, the internet, blah, blah. You know, I kind of grew up with technology. I remember when the iPod Touch came out. I was in, I think, 8th grade or 7th grade, and I was around the age 13, and I remember learning how to hack and mod them and jailbreak them, and everyone in school paid me $5, and I jailbroke everyone's iPods, and we were all able to play our favorite game, Tony Hawk, or download these softwares and things that could allow us to customize it how we want. And you know, a lot of this external, you know, these like toys, and, you know, I remember playing with Nerf guns. But I also had this sense of exploration as a kid where I spent a lot of my youth in the forest, and, you know, I would build teepees with sticks and sharpen spears and attempt to hunt deer, you know, building bridges with stones. And, you know, I spent a lot of my youth exploring outside, riding my bike, you know, going for long trail rides, you know, 50 miles away from home, where I would visit Valley Forge National Historic Park, and, yeah, just be out there exploring as a child as well. But yeah, maybe inevitably, because of the technology and all these advancements, it does become this distraction. And I'll never forget, honestly, I remember when Xbox Live came out, you know, I was maybe in like 4th or 5th grade. I remember hanging out with more like older students that were in my neighborhood, or, you know, 8th graders playing Xbox. And, you know, they would go on the internet in the pregame lobbies, you know, going on funnyjunk.com, like looking at funny memes, and then whoa, like there's pornography. And it's like, okay, you get exposed to this kind of thing when you're like 10 years old. And yeah, I think actually this will have a lasting effect at scale amongst Generation Z specifically, because of its accessibility through technology, where you will see decadence, you will see, yeah, just the pursuit of casual sex through our hedonistic whims. And I think that's the inevitable outcome. And yeah, there's this like suppression of our natural biological design to reproduce. And so, I don't know, I think it's worth mentioning. Yeah, I think we should not indulge in all of these hedonistic things. It's bad. It's not good. Just listen to your conscience. What does it tell you? Is it telling you, oh yes, this is something I should be doing. I should be looking at this, you know, naked, you know, woman on this website. It's like, yeah, I don't know that that's very natural. But I think it's become so normal, even through Hollywood, right? All of the movies and sex scenes, it's just unnecessary. Like when I saw in the theaters Napoleon, this movie sucked. There was one scene where it showcased his strategy and the way that he positioned himself on the hill, and the men fell into the ice and he defeated them in this battle, and it was like a cool scene. But most of it was about him, you know, just having sex constantly, you know, and trying to beget a child, and I guess like inevitably did he? I forget. Like I couldn't bear to watch it. I mean, I felt like it was just like honestly that kind of ruined the movie. Too much of that. You know, the way that they depicted it, it just wasn't this necessary thing at all. Honestly. But maybe those of Generation Z that reproduce, that beget children, yeah, this will become the most sacred act. You know, this will become a very sacred and meaningful act, you know, where our natural biological design to reproduce, to have sex, to evolve must be met with this sacred act. And why? Well, I guess the reason why is so that we can continuously expand our consciousness, that we can continue to expand humanity generally. And considering generation, right? I think maybe we don't consider the next generation or generations into the future, or, you know, maybe we don't think ahead enough. And because of that, we pursue our base instinct right here, right now. You know, thinking of going to the club, going to the bar, going to the dark cave. You know, like these things to me aren't fun. But I think that we're always seeking that next dopamine hit, that next pleasure, that next drug, that next high, or that next thing that'll get us by, you know, instead of the sacrifice. You know, even considering social media use, Instagram, you know, this shit's like pornography. You know, people selling their bodies, making these photos. You know, the sexier you make your photo, you know, the more likes you're gonna get. You know, show more. They're gonna promote you on their Instagram reel. It's like freaking prostitution, man. You're just selling your soul. You're selling your body. You know, what is the soul? Maybe the soul is your body, and the things that you consume, or more importantly, the things that you do not do, will be on display on your physical body. You know, consider somebody indulging in smoking and the way that it affects your skin, you know, discoloring of the skin, of the nails, of the teeth, you know, where you become more brittle, you become more anemic and weak. You know, I've heard people say, oh, I smoke, you know, cigar, it increases your testosterone. Bro, this is a fucking scam. You know, you want cancer? You know, maybe a lot of the things that we consume are just cancerous. And yeah, just like cancer spreading throughout our body, yeah, maybe it also poisons our soul itself, right? So if you consider your body as your soul, you know, how will you choose to treat your body? You know, maybe we should treat our bodies wisely, you know, through consuming less junk, you know, both physically and metaphorically, whether it's media or food. You know, these things poison your soul, right? If you go on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube and you look at these podcasts, or, you know, if you listen to these, you know, stories and read these articles or whatever, you know, a lot of it's this like doom and gloom, bad news. You know, they're never uplifting anyone. They're never championing life. It's always something's going on in the world. And it's like, yeah, the more you stay locked into that mindset, you know, the more that you are a consumer, yeah, the more poisoned your soul will inevitably become. This is the truth. And so you got to remove yourself from the distractions. You got to remove all the processed shit from your body, sort of detox your body, detox your mind. Obsession versus discipline. I feel as though discipline is doing something when you don't feel like it, right? You're disciplined. I'm disciplined right now. You know, would I rather just walk without a freaking weighted vest on? Yeah, probably. The weight is starting to bear down on my shoulders and I'm starting to feel sore. You know, like it's not this like pleasant feeling. There's a bit of pain involved here. There's a bit of suffering involved here, you know? You know, that's discipline, right? Waking up early, you know, hitting the gym. However, there's, I believe, a difference between these two notions, where my photographic practice of coming out here and photographing each and every day, this is obsession, right? This is not me doing something and I don't want to do it, right? I am beyond this notion of motivated, beyond this idea of passion and discipline. Like, I am absolutely obsessed, right? And I think that this obsession is what has guided me to make the photographs I've made over the years. You know, I'm just looking at this this scene here where we have this fountain in Logan Square. I'm reminding myself how obsessed I was. I remember in 2021, you know, it was like the first day of summer and this fountain was open up for people to play, and I wanted to make a photograph of a rainbow because I noticed as I positioned myself in my camera, I could see a rainbow appear when the fountain was going off. And I was, you know, looking at this and just like, wow, that's so beautiful. And I spent maybe 8 hours just all day from morning till evening trying to make this photograph, just obsessed and driven to make that shot. And, you know, I think that fortune truly does favor the bold, where I had to step into the water, getting soaked, you know, almost falling and tripping and breaking my camera and, you know, going through all these obstacles to make the photograph. You know, I'm obsessed. You know, I'm waking up at 5 a.m., going for my morning walk and making pictures just to practice, and I just can't stop. And, you know, that's not discipline, that's obsession. And I've been this way since, you know, I've been around, you know, since I was 17, you know, just completely obsessed with photography. But I believe that it is not even photography itself that I'm obsessed with. For photography and the camera has become the excuse for me to merely be on the front lines of life, experiencing life itself. Right? For me, photography is about life, and a photograph displays your lust for life. And I think that it is inevitable that you will make stronger photographs, or more interesting photographs, or more beautiful photographs, whatever you want to say, through lusting for life. If you're waking up in the morning and you're eager to go out there and to explore and to experience life, no matter how mundane it may seem, well, I think that is where we can find success in our photography. It's the lust for life. And I just have that lust for life within me, I think, and I'm just obsessed with life and just experiencing every moment. And yeah, photography, yeah, it allows me to just be here right now in this present moment. And I'm just really grateful to have another day right now, to go out there and to see life and to bring my camera along for the ride. I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's the lust for life. Just follow the light.